Good morning. Is your organization, museum, library, school, historical society, anything like that, looking for reasons, ideas to expand your awareness, increase your awareness, create some revenue, and have a fun time all at the same time? Today we're going to talk about how to prepare for, how to promote, and how to organize an antique and fine art appraisal fair. Thanks for watching. I'm Jason Roski, the owner of the KC Auction and Appraisal Company here in Kansas City, Missouri, and this is Behind the Gavel with Jason, a show we do every Friday morning here on Facebook Live. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to share this on my page real quick. But we do a lot of appraisal events around the area. Some are with big organizations, others with small. And we look at it as a great way to help people find out what their items are worth, but also a great way for organizations to raise awareness and a great way for them to raise some money. I mean, all organizations that I know of are always looking for ways to raise some money that isn't going to cost them a lot of money and be a big burden on their staff and their volunteers, because most organizations are run by a small group of dedicated people who are passionate about the library or the museum or whatever your situation may be. And so we're going to talk about some things to consider. Is an appraisal event right for your organization? And then how do you proceed forward? Generally speaking, if your organization is geared towards people in their 50s or older, baby boomer generation, essentially, an appraisal event could be a perfect opportunity for you to expand your reach and raise some money. And we want that age range is important mainly because they've usually established their lives. They're now thinking about moving to a retirement home, or they already have, or they're much closer to dealing with their parents' situation. And so it's an easier conversation for them to have, and they're looking more for opportunities to find out, is that painting that mom has always had in the living room, is it a real painting? Is it a print? Is it by a well-known artist, or is it somebody who is anonymous and doesn't have value? Is it something we need to have insured? Is it something that we can just move along or donate to the thrift store or just hang on the wall because we like it? So you might have heard these called all kinds of different things. Antique and fine art appraisal fair, fine art and antique appraisal fair, trash or treasure. What's it worth? Junk in the trunk. And of course, the biggest one we all know about is Antiques Roadshow, which is essentially a fundraiser for public television. And we have done probably our most well-known appraisal events that we have done and helped organize are for KCPT here in Kansas City. They have done several fine art and antique appraisal events that we have been involved with. Originally as just an appraiser, and then as co-sponsors and partners on that project as far as finding the space, laying out the space, finding the appraisers, helping them promote and market the event for maximum reach and coverage. And we've done that with KCPT, like I just mentioned. We've done it with Clay County Museum, Excelsior Springs Museum. We've done work with retirement communities, and we've done them for all kinds of different organizations. Last week, I was just up in St. Joe at the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art doing an event up there that went really, really well. They had 6 appraisers. They had an art conservator there, and we were essentially, all of us were busy all day. We had 15-minute slots from noon until 4, and so 16 slots per person times 6. They had 100 people come in to the museum that day. Some of whom were members, some of them were board members, some of them were people who are actively involved with the museum already. But I know that they sold museum memberships. They got people into the museum who had never been there before, in a very disarming way and in a very positive way. That it just brings the museum to the forefront of other people's conversations. And in St. Joe, it worked out really, really well for the museum because St. Joe's a nice town, but it's not very big. And when something like that happens, it's a news event. And so the local news stations covered it. I believe the local radio stations covered it. It was probably in the newspaper if there's still one printed there. And of course, the museum promoted on their Facebook page. We promoted it on our Facebook page and in emails. And so the museum got a lot of publicity over the event that is worth even more than the funds and memberships that they procured because of the event, because the publicity will go on forever. That information on the Facebook page will always be there. I'm sure it's in a previous archived event. it was so successful they want to do it again next year. They asked me how to make it an even more successful event for next year. And I've done many of these over the last 15 years or so. So if you're listening is a great idea, sounds like a wonderful idea. What do you need to do? What things do you put in place to make an event for your organization? Well, you need a location. And from an appraiser standpoint, it needs to be well lit. There should be internet connection or Wi-Fi capability, because even though anybody can research online, most appraisers have subscriptions to sites that most people wouldn't want to pay for, and we just understand what to look for. You can bring me something that I know what it is, and I know how to research the terms to find out other examples. It happened immediately on an old cast iron bank. I knew the keywords to search for to find that bank in particular, as opposed to just trying to search the mechanical banks, of which there are thousands of copies and examples. I could show them, hey, this was made by, I believe it was the arcade company. But it was made in 1885. I gave them the title of it. We talked about the value based upon their condition and the condition on the ones I'm finding online. And it really, so those are things that the appraiser needs, a well-lit space, open space that you're not right on top of people, Wi-Fi connection, power for your laptops and things like that. And and so that's what you want to look for in a space. Something that's visible as well. One of the greatest advertising tools available is a sign in the yard. And so I know that the Albrecht Kemper put an appraisal event today in the front yard, and they had a couple of people stop because of that. And like I said, the event went successfully well enough that they're going to do it again next year. So you need a space. If you have one for your own, where you meet regularly, or you have a facility if you're a museum or a library, or something along those lines, a rec center, historical society, you have a place you can do it, that's fantastic. Obviously cuts down on cost and concerns and logistics. If not, you can usually find someplace relatively cheap, reasonably, VFW clubs, libraries often have spaces that you can use for those kinds of events, community rec centers. There's all kinds of areas you can use because you're only going to be in and out in a few hours, that you can get for a nominal price. And sometimes they'll work with you if you say, we're going to promote it this way in these locations, these outlets, support us and have them as an underwriter. We want to thank the North Kansas City Community Center for supplying the space today for us to have the appraisal event. And you make sure that you tell your patrons and your guests that's you're in that space because they donated the space to you. So you need to have a space. Probably maybe the first or second most important thing. You need appraisers, and we're relatively easy to find. All appraisers have different qualities, different expertise, different ways of communicating with the public, and you want to make sure when you're talking to people, auctioneers, appraisers, antique dealers, people who do estate sales, all can be really good sources for appraisers for an event like this. Ask them a couple questions. Have you done events like this in the past? If so, did they happen repetitively? Or is it a one-time event and it didn't go well, so it never happened again? That might tell you something, maybe not about the appraiser, but it's something to keep in mind. A good appraiser will bring in more people for your event if they have any kind of a reputation as far as doing these events and notoriety in and of themselves, or publicity in and of themselves. When we show up at an event, we have people say, we came because of you, because I've done quite a few of these. I've been on local television, radio, print, and so people have an idea that my opinion matters and has merit, and that if I say something about an object, it's usually pretty correct. And if you look at our auction catalog listing, that bears out. We will tell you exactly what an object is in our descriptions, whether or not a client likes it that way or not. We have a mirror in our current auction that was sold to our clients as circa 1820, and it's not. And we have made sure that information is known to the people buying, because it's more important to us to be authentic for you than it is for us to try and raise a couple of extra dollars today. So, and you want to make sure that if the people supporting your event, those attending, most people have things that are interesting and old, but may not have a lot of value. And you need experts who can talk to somebody about that in a way that doesn't make them feel negative about that information. We all have things in our house that we love, but doesn't necessarily have a lot of value. And we may or may not know it, but if you bring that to an appraisal event, you don't want an appraiser to say, "Oh, that's worth nothing. That's it's just nobody ever cares about it." You want somebody who has the tact and the sensitivity for your patrons to be able to say, "I appreciate, it's a nice object. This is what it is. This is when it was made, where it was made. The market isn't exactly receptive to it today. Tastes change every decade. And so these things aren't in the most popular fashion. They're not in vogue." You want somebody who can talk passionately to your patrons so they don't leave with a negative taste in their mouth. Again, most of us in this business who do this full time understand that and are tactful with our customers and clients, because we know that even somebody who has things that aren't extremely valuable today might have other things valuable in their house, or have friends or for colleagues that do have things. And so we usually are really tactful in our discussions with folks about what they have. So you need a space, you need appraisers, they need to market it. And marketing now is really super easy. Any organization will have a membership database. That's where you start. You make sure that all of your members know that the event is happening. Email, phone call, posting on your website, and then posting on your Facebook page are crucial to informing your membership of the event, and ask your members to share it with their friends and their circles, because most everybody knows somebody at some point who is going to go through this situation. Hey, Mercedes, good to see you. How are you this morning? It's been a while since you've been able to pop on live. We're talking about if you're an organization looking to raise funds, is an antique and art appraisal event the right option for you? And so you need the space, you need the appraisers, you need people, you need marketing, you need to get people there. So again, your membership database is the perfect place to start. Is your organization historic to your community? Will you get publicity with it? Can you call up the newspaper, the radio station, the TV station, say, "Hey, we're having an appraisal event. We want to invite the entire community. Maybe a building that's not open all the time, they can come in and see it. We'll have an appraisal event, and you can find out what your objects are worth." What do you charge for those appraisals? A lot of people like to start at $10 an appraisal, and that's fine. You have to sell a lot of $10 items to raise any kind of significant money. And as far as an appraiser is concerned, $10 appraisals usually bring in items that aren't as don't have as much value as well. And part of the reason that we do these is to see things that we don't normally see, and see things that are interesting and unique. And so, maybe $25 an appraisal or 3 for $50 gets people to think, "Oh, if I want to spend $50, I'm going to bring in something that has some value, or has really always intrigued us," and see what they say about that. So when you're promoting the event, how do you do that? Well, again, distribution to your membership list. How do you promote it to people who aren't familiar with your group, aren't familiar with your mission, and are just curious about what something is worth? And what should those people bring in? Everybody can look up what rosewood pottery is worth. Everybody can look up what their coins are worth. Everybody can look up what, commodity type collectibles are worth. And so when you're looking at promoting this, you want to tell people, bring in the things that have family stories that you want to verify, or the painting that you can't read the signature on, or the pottery that you've been told has been around for 150 years, but there are no marks on it, so you're not sure what it is. Those are the things you want to bring in. That's what really you're going to get the most benefit from. It still may not have much value, but it will satisfy a curiosity. It will answer questions that you can answer yourself on so many other things. Sets of dinnerware, you can find that set and exactly what it's worth on replacements on eBay, what people are asking for, what it's selling for. So those are the basics of it. Finding a good space, finding good appraisers, and promoting it. And you can raise hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in a short amount of time, and raise a ton of awareness for your organization at the same time. Like I said, they had over 100 people come through the appraisal event up in St. Joe last week. I know when we do these for KCPT, we raise $20,000 and $30,000 in an event, which that's significant money. That's a big time chunk of money. Most organizations don't have the capability to raise that kind of money on just an appraisal event. So you might want to consider doing your appraisal event with an antique show or a flea market or a fair of some sort. Do you have an apple fair? Do you have a harvest, fair every year? Combine it with that. There's a lot of publicity and a lot of things happening around it already. The benefits of doing things solo compared to with a group are, debatable. Sometimes you get better results if you're a standalone event as compared to with a larger event. You just have to look at what your community would support. And if you have time or you want to look at this as a long term, you might try both. In Lexington, Missouri, they have a fall festival every year that we did several appraisal events at. They did okay. They didn't raise the money that they wanted. They didn't get the publicity they wanted. I want to talk to them about maybe doing one in the springtime when it's on its own, and it will be more of a focus of attention. Does your company ever do the Antiques Roadshow? No, Mercedes, we don't. We do a lot of work with our local public television station, but the Antique Roadshow appraisers, most of them are based out of New York, Northeast, Texas, because Heritage Auctions got involved with them years ago, and then a couple out of California. There's a few from other places of the country, but Marshall Memco and the production team are based in Boston. And our society, our population is based in Boston. Our major auction houses from Philadelphia, basically from DC through Boston, that's where they exist. And so there's a huge pool of extremely qualified appraisers within 100 or 200 miles of where they're at that have interactions with other appraisers they already know. And so even though I know Lark Mason and I know the Quinn family and Rago and a few other appraisers, it's harder to get in the door if you're not in that Northeast corridor or with a Heritage Auction House, which is like the third or fourth largest auction company in the world, or in LA. That's the way it is. We're flyover country. I get it. I understand it. But that's the reality of it. I would like to do the show. It's harder to do it now than before. They don't do as many appraisal segments. The way the show is laid out is different. The other thing is all those appraisers pay their own way. The Antiques Roadshow gives them no money for travel, gives them no money for food, gives them no money for hotels. So when they're in Houston, and then they're in Indianapolis, and then they're in Charlottesville, and then they're in Detroit, and then they're in pick the city, Omaha, Kansas City, Seattle, those appraisers are funding their own way. And they might go to 4 or 5 cities and have one segment show up on air. So it's a pretty healthy investment of time. It's also a really healthy investment of resources. You can go to I can go to Detroit for a weekend and spend $1,500, $2,000. That's not terrible. But if you're doing 4 or 5, they do 10 shows a season. You're talking $20,000 out of pocket just to do it. And then the time, like you have to fly up there on Friday. You have to, you may not come back till Sunday. And if there's anything else, sometimes they do special events on Thursday they want you there for. So it can get to be really time consuming and of course, revenue consuming as well. Yeah, no, it's surprising. It is and it isn't. Public television, they're driven on volunteers. They're driven on, sponsorship. They're driven on that kind of thing. They're not commercial per se. And so they don't have the budgets that like a private television company would have. And so they count on, and the appraisers, it's worth it, for them to do it continuously, or else they wouldn't continue to do it. And a lot of them, like I know Lark Mason drives the country as often as he can when he's doing that, and he sets up events for him and his wife to stop at, and clients and customers. He stopped at our office a couple of different times when he's been coming through the out country. We sold on iGavel, Lark Mason's platform iGavel for a while. And Lark's a wonderful, wonderful man. And Erica's wife is just great. Their son down in Texas, they're a wonderful family. They couldn't be any nicer. And we love when they happen to have a chance to stop by. We've been by their offices as well. But so they drive and they'll do events, like he did a private event at the Nelson for patrons that they went into the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art here in Kansas City. They went into the storage, the catacombs, and looked at pieces of their private collection that never see the light of day. And Lark talked about what makes this piece, great compared to another piece, details to look for, and things like that. So, every appraiser looks at the situation and opportunity differently. And so, yeah, it's just a great way to promote their brand. That's what we do things with KCPT here locally, is that we get that publicity on air during Antiques Roadshow. And people who like that see us in that light, and we love doing it, but it's definitely a publicity marketing tool for us as well that has worked out really quite well for us. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the thumbs up. If you have other questions, please go ahead and post them here. We'll answer them as we see them. If you're watching on YouTube later on, go ahead and post comments there. We love that. I'll share this on my LinkedIn profile this afternoon as well. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns you don't want to share publicly, you can always send us a direct message on all those means. Or you can give us a phone call at 816-283-3633, 816-283-3633. Drop us an email at info@kcauctioncompany.com. Letter K, letter C, auction, and company is spelled out.com. And you can ask us anything about what you heard today, previously, or questions that you want to have answered. We're always looking for input from our fans and friends on things that they're questioning, and see what you. Oh, hey, Robert, thanks for watching. And yeah, it's a holiday weekend, so those of you watching on Friday Live here, have a great weekend. Don't party too hard. Even though Monday is a holiday, we have an auction closing Monday night, our largest auction of the year by lot count. We'll see if it's our largest by dollars generated. It's a really good auction, a lot of great art, ceramics, furniture, etc., that we're excited about selling for our clients. Like I said, we did the appraisal event last week. This week, I'm going to be recording a podcast with the Sale Ring, which is an auction company. United Country Real Estate and Auction does a podcast, and they're going to have me on there to talk about social media marketing and presence and influence that way, which we do a lot of. And so that's going to be fun to do as well. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next Friday.